This topic of conversation is so important to horses and people alike that I put a lot of thought and feel into how best to bring it to you. So I advertise for a difficult, troubled horse with maybe a scared owner to film them learning this thing that I'm calling the key to the kingdom of horses. I found Joe and Dawn, got a cameraman, and drove 700 kilometres to bring this lesson to you. This is not the traditional teaching video where I'm showing you what to do. You're going to watch Dawn doing it herself. She made her first breakthrough into bubbling with happiness in 8 minutes. Yes, you heard that right. 8 minutes. I could see the timestamps when I was editing. And in just under an hour, this incredibly difficult and traumatised little wild horse reached out to touch a human voluntarily for the very first time. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was a windy day, which made crappy sound on the audio. So I've taken the audio out and used the opportunity to make a better lesson for you with the voiceover. There's 2 parts to the video. One where I'm giving you a detailed explanation of just what this key to the kingdom of horses is, so that you can start thinking about how it applies to you. And I'm just running footage of Dawn and Joe in the background. And the second half, where I run that footage again, explaining in more detail what she's doing. So here's Joe, bless him. And Dawn, she's such a sweetheart. Joe and his friend Sam were Dawn's first horses and the beginning of her horse dream. And then me. 20 years ago, I spent over $50,000 and travelled near that many kilometres across Australia and the world in a very short time, chasing my dream of being really good with horses. And all along, the answer was inside me, and my own horses showed me the way. Horses are the most amazing beings, hey? They can be so present that merely being in their presence when they're relaxed can even out our heart rates, slow our breathing down, reduce our blood pressure, and help even the most vulnerable and fragile of us make sense of the world. Horses just like yours and mine and Joe here have helped people resolve the effects of trauma, even serious stuff like PTSD. They've helped people to deal with and even resolve things like anxiety and depression and overwhelm of all kinds. They've helped children with autism and ADHD find calmness. They've even helped people with eating disorders find the emotional disturbances behind that. They have this magnificent presentness, that's a word I've made up, and sentience and willingness to help humans. And yet, these are the very same animals that are routinely abused in our society, often from ignorance. These are the same beings who are pulled on, pushed on, chased until they submit, forced to do things against their will, strapped down, tied down, ridden to helplessness in roll cur, no matter what pretty name you call it. They're whipped, spurred, and all the other ugly things that we see happening with horses every day. The only heartbreak that I'm interested in, though, is the heart-breaking open, and more people having a willingness to do things differently, and that you're here right now watching this video means that you're one of them. What was it that drew you to want to be with horses? Do you remember the first horse you laid eyes on that just grabbed you by the heart? Can you remember the feeling of it? The sheer wonder of them? Most people's experience is vastly different from the glorious feeling of that original inspiration. And Dawn, that you'll see in the video here, her experience with her little Brumby Joe, that too had been vastly different to her original inspiration. We get so bogged down in the trying to be the best that we can be for them, trying to get them to be the best that they can be, and to look after them in the best way possible, that it's all too easy to lose sight of what it was that brought us into horses in the first place. I want to take you back to that original feeling that brought you into horses in the first place. What if you could have that lovely feeling as the foundation that you come back to regularly when you're working with your horse in everything that you do? And how does that fit with this incredible animal that has the ability to even out our heart rate, to slow our breathing down and reduce our blood pressure, and to help even vulnerable and fragile people understand their world? If that inspires you, if that's what you want, then it's quite simple. You have to make those feelings the first thing. Then comes the goals that you want to achieve or the things that you want to do with your horse. And you are not going to believe how much faster it is to get to where you want to be when you slow down and work with a horse like this. What we're watching in this video is Dawn learning how to make that incredibly special feeling good feeling the foundation of everything that she does with Joe. Bubbling with happiness. Those were the words she used. Bubbling with happiness was her original inspiration, and bubbling with happiness was what she found 8 minutes into the lesson. And she found that by paying attention to and taking action on every feeling of tension and fear and anxiety that she felt, even before she got in the paddock. Feel is the key to the kingdom of horses. Using your feel, following the good feelings and using the crappy ones, learning to notice even the very subtle crappy ones and using them to change something, that is the key to the kingdom of horses. It's the magic ingredient behind every single great horseman or woman, and as you'll see on this video, it's completely learnable. The thing is, your feel is utterly unique to you. You can only find it inside yourself. You can't copy someone else's feel successfully, and when we try to do that, usually out of admiration for the other person's skills, that's the source of that horrible I am not enough feeling that I'm sure so many of us are familiar with. There's 5 broad ways of feeling, and we all feel our unique combination of those 5 feels that are our natural strength, our natural talent. You're going to hear me emphasising that over and over and over again. That tension and tightness in her breath that Dawn was experiencing even before she got in the paddock, I call that physical feel. And she was experiencing it for good reason. That little horse was terrified, and he was trying to communicate how scared he was. So by her noticing that and backing away each time she felt that tension and waiting for him to relax, Joe started to feel listened to. Each time she listened and took action on what she felt, Joe was able to relax just that tiny bit more, until a few minutes later she was able to walk up to the gate and still feel good. Then the gate itself was an issue. As he walked in, her tension increased and her breathing tightened again, so he had to come back out at the gate. And then Joe felt listened to, and he was able to relax just a little bit more. The more she paid attention to that tension and restriction in her breathing that was part of her unique way of feeling her horse, the more fear slowly dropped away from Joe. And it was only slowly, because this was one very traumatised little horse. Once you get the hang of the feeling, listening thing, I expect that your own horse will respond more quickly. But hey, having said that, I had a horse in a clinic once where the lady had to walk all the way out a long driveway and a couple of 100 metres down the road before her horse realised that she really was serious about helping him with his fear and started to relax. It's not only tension and breathing. People who have physical feel as one of their natural strengths experience stiffnesses and aches and pains, and often they're not quite sure how they got them. There's a tendency to dismiss these stiffnesses and tensions as just part of life, especially when we're older. Well, yes, they are a part of life for very many people, and no, they don't always have to be. The tension and the discomfort caused by ignoring our physical feel can build up layer by layer until we're experiencing quite a lot of discomfort. I lost count a long time ago, the number of people I've worked with who were in pain from ignoring a strong talent for physical feel. And when they started using that as the blessing that it is, the pain not only eased, it often disappeared spontaneously. And I can understand that you doubt me if you haven't experienced it yet, but come into one of our live events, listen to others and have a feel for yourself. I do my best to work with everyone who has their hand up on a live event, even if I have to schedule another event to get to all of them. If physical feel is one of your natural talents, as you get good at using it, you'll find lots of that old tension slipping away and aches and pains slipping away with it. And then you can use your physical feel to achieve a freedom of movement and harmony with your horse that will have you bubbling with feeling good. Let's talk about the anxiety part of Dawn's unique feel. Horses are excellent emotional communicators, and emotional feel, and what I call emotional feel, is one of the 5 ways of feeling for our horse, with fear and anxiety being the most common horse experiences. So whether it's them that get scared or you that get scared, if you don't know how to use your emotional feel, you'll be communicating that fear to each other and escalating each other, and it can be overwhelming for some people. If emotional feel is part of your natural talent, just imagine how beautiful it will be when you follow the feel-good feelings, and when it doesn't feel good, when your horse gets scared or you get frustrated, that you use those feelings for change so that you both feel good again. And that glorious feeling that first inspired you to want to be with horses, whatever that feeling you're looking for is, that can be your foundation. And can you see that when you push through that fear, then fear itself is the foundation of your relationship? Ooh, that's big, isn't it? No matter how faint that fear becomes with time, from the time the first person ignored it and pushed through it, fear became that horse's foundation of their life with humans. And thank God we can support them to release that. So if you're one of the people who get overwhelmed and emotional easily, you're not going to believe how easily this has turned into a superpower, and your horse is going to love you. Or are you one of the people who gets energy feel is so hard to describe in words, and those of you who have it as a natural talent will know what it's like to be misunderstood. For those of you who felt the sweet flow of energy, you'll know what I'm talking about. The other side of energy feel is this kind of pent up, stuck feeling inside, like if you could just reach in and pull it out, you'd feel better. Or do you even get explosive with frustration? That's the stuck energy side of energy feel. When you learn to pay attention to and flow with the energy between you and your horse and direct that energy to get what you both want, that and how good both you and your horse feel will be the foundation of your relationship. And you dressage riders, that energy flowing between horse and rider, that is the circle of energy that all the great dressage masters talk about, that you can build into the joyful power of collection. Energy feel's also one of Dawn's natural talents, and she felt that clean, clear flow of energy between her and Joe in under an hour. That's the holy grail for dressage riders, and unless you're a specially gifted rider, it doesn't suddenly start in the saddle. For us ordinary mortals, it comes much more easily from using it in everything that we do with our horse, and then it can flow through to your ridden work so much more easily. Or if you're one of those people who can't sleep at night for the thoughts going around and around in your head, yep, you guessed it, that's a superpower in disguise too. I call this one mental feel. You are going to love how learning to understand and communicate with your horse can bring such a relief to the worrying and the sleeping habits. Thoughts and ideas that come with an expansive feeling of rightness. That's the experience of those people who have mental feel when they use it as the natural talent that it is. See, we just weren't taught how to use it as the talent that it is. Here's an example of Dawn using her mental feel. She just got the idea that Joe was afraid of her size, so she made herself smaller. That was her mental feel at work. That expansive feeling of rightness from acting on those thoughts and ideas, that feeling of satisfaction that all is well in this moment, that then becomes the foundation of your relationship. Ooh. And maybe biggest of all the feels that can become part of your very own superpower. Are you one of the gentle people who feels such despair and heartache at the terrible things that you see happening out there in the horse world? That despair and heartache is when your heart feel is in overwhelm. It's perhaps the most powerful force on earth for positive change when we're in balance. The heart feel is what we were talking about back at the beginning when we were talking about wanting to be the best that we can be for our horse. Using our heart feel means automatically looking behind a bad behaviour or whatever crappy thing is happening to see the truth of what's really going on. And when you get a handle on how to use this addition to your superpower is the one that has horses and other animals just turning over to you so easily. Or maybe when you were young, you got so overwhelmed that you had to disconnect and dumb your feelings down just to survive. That was me. Disconnection and numbness is a useful thing to be able to do when we're in overwhelm. It not only brings us relief, it can even stop us from going crazy when we don't know what to do with our feelings. But the downside of disconnecting all the time is that we disconnect from our horse too. We shut down this rich and powerful guidance system that is actually designed to bring us the deep connection with our horse that I'm guessing you yearn for too. One of the great gifts that horses bring us is that by helping us to get more and more confident with using our feelings as the guidance they're designed for, then it brings us peacefulness and joy and happiness in our other relationships too. And I know that one from personal experience. So, now I've got you all inspired. Let's go and have a look at how Joe and Dawn found their first bubbling with happiness in 8 minutes. Let's recap just a little. We started off with a horse who was obliging enough to not hurt anyone, but who shook with terror at everything that was done to him. And yet it only took 8 minutes to make a breakthrough to bubbling with happiness, and under an hour for him to reach out and touch a human for the first time voluntarily. So what was her key to success? Once I'd drawn her attention to show how she was experiencing her feel with Joe, Dawn couldn't even get near the paddock without her tension rising and her breathing being restricted. So she used that physical feel, as I call it, the tension rising and the restricted breathing that she was experiencing, to know that she had to change something. At this stage of her training, that change is to stop and back away from the horse as far as she had to, for that tension to disappear and her breathing to come back to normal. So what she did was she approached, noticed the tension, stopped, backed away and waited, and she had to do that a few times before she could get to the gate feeling okay. See, if she had just waltzed into the paddock, then this tension and restricted breathing and faint anxiety that she was experiencing would have been the foundation for everything that they did that day. And every time she had ignored her feel, that tension and anxiety would have increased. Now, I doubt that your horse is anywhere near as scared as Joe, but it's the same for them. If you ignore your feel for them, and you too will have your unique version of those 5 feels inside you, then your horse will have tension and anxiety as the foundation for whatever you're doing together that day. Now she's got to the gate feeling okay, but as she gets inside the paddock, the tension and restricted breathing and anxiety starts building again, and we had to step out of the gate to release that. And again, if she had pushed through that communication, then the tension and anxiety would have increased in Joe, and it would have increased more and more each time she pushed through those signals that she was experiencing. Do you get it? It was the commitment to eliminating his fear and tension and her fear and tension right from the beginning and every step along the way that was the cause of Dawn's miraculous 8-minute breakthrough to bubbling with happiness. There's nothing miraculous about it at all when you work with that kind of commitment. This commitment and attention to all our feelings is what makes it possible for ordinary people like you and me with a bit of practice to have beautiful things happening with our horse. Here's Dawn just brilliantly demonstrating her mental feel. Gosh, I couldn't have ordered up anyone better to demonstrate this stuff with. She's got a bit of all 5 feels that are easy for her to notice, and not everyone's like that. So here she is with her mental feel where she just got the idea that Joe was afraid of her size, and so she sat down with Sam, and then later on Joe joined them. See, when our mental feel is too often in overwhelm with worry, then it's hard to know whether an idea is the right one or not. The best way to explain it to you is that the right idea has an expansive feeling of rightness about it. You'll know it when you feel it. It'll really make you smile. And the validation of it, of course, is the outcome, like it was here with Dawn and Joe. The next bit of footage that I pulled up for you is what I called the dance of love. And the outcome of that was that heart-opening experience of Joe reaching out to touch her. His very first experience of doing that with a human. Dawn's keys to success were from using all her feelings to be guided by what felt good, and when it didn't feel good, to change something. By this time, she was using all 5 feels in her repertoire to keep the good feelings flowing and using the previously crappy feelings for change. Again, your feel is going to be different to Dawn's. You will likely have 1 or more feels that are stronger than the rest, and it may take using those reliably before you start becoming aware of the other ways of feeling. Remember what I said earlier, that copying someone else's feel is a recipe for failure and for that horrible feeling of I am not enough. We here get this fact all the way to our bones and talk about actually celebrating our differences. This attitude seems to be the fastest way to support people to find their own unique feel. I hope you've enjoyed learning about what I think is the key to the kingdom of horses. Every now and again you come across a brilliant horse person who seems like they were just born to use it. But now you know that you can have it too. And if you want to feel that for yourself, one way is to come on into my website and find the next free live event where I guide people as a group and individually as well into an experience of their unique feel for their horse. I'll look forward to seeing you there. This little piece of home video was taken a few weeks after we were there. Just look at this. He walks up to her now, she can catch him, halter him, stroke him, with nice feelings on both of their parts instead of that shaking with terror stuff that he was doing before. Each task that she gets as beautiful as this will reduce the pressure on the next task because fear is cumulative. Each unresolved fear and tension adds on to the next one until even small problems can turn into really big ones. What you're watching is quite an achievement with an incredibly difficult horse for someone who's still learning her feel. There's more tension here in Joe that will need to be released for him to be a completely happy pony, but with Dawn's commitment to him, you can just see they're going to achieve that. Feel is an inside of us thing and can only be found inside of us. It can't be found outside of us. And that's why you get some brilliant teachers out there. And when we try and copy them, we just feel like we'll never be as good.
Yeah.
And we can be.
Yep.
Ooh, goosebumps.
It's a bit of trust here.
You'll develop you'll develop the confidence as you get validation.
Yep.
You know, I'm not asking you to suddenly throw your hands up in the air and, you know, suddenly do everything differently. You're going to, as we work with Joe today, you're going to get validation of what you're doing and then that'll build confidence. Your horse will tell you when you're on the right track. And that will build more and more confidence in your feel. There's an underlying baseline of anxiety in Joe that is intensifying every small thing that happens now. And that's that faint bit of tension across the top of your shoulders. It's like it's, you know, when something happens that's just a little bit disconcerting, he goes, "Oh!" And when we've let go of that, that won't be there anymore.
Yes.
In fact, can you see your whole being's just going, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Because in the moment I'm not feeling it, but when it's pointed out to me like you've just pointed it out, it's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I can feel it now and I can release it. But
that's why I talk about the routine, living this feel stuff in the routine of their lives is more important than applying it under the saddle or, you know, when you're doing fancy riding stuff.
Yep. But not only around him, just every single day, no matter what I'm doing, just releasing that tension and just...
all aware of it.
Yeah, being aware of it in everything that I do, not just here, because then that's going to translate even better to what I'm doing here. Yeah.
You're so right. And the thing that happens when you learn to be this way effortlessly with your horse it becomes effortless in the rest of your life too.
Yep.
And then your husband's happier, your kids are happier, you're happier at work.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.